Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Inside Voices, and I think that this episode had some good parts into it. I just think that there's almost too much going on at one point, that they were juggling kind of three main storylines, maybe almost a little bit of a fourth, but that's my only real issue. I did like what was going on in here, and I really liked what was going on with Coulson in this episode and his little group of people, and what was going on with Simmons and Yo-Yo and Mac and Fitz. So, this starts out, and they're pretty much trying to figure out what to do with the Gravitonium. Hale has optioned to use Creel as the first test subject to kind of learn more about the Gravitonium and all that and see what's going on. Of course, Ruby is kind of putting two and two together to figure out that Hale is going to try and use someone else to be the destroyer of worlds than herself. Now, granted, this does do some compelling development for her, but not really. It's not really shown that much. It's more just like flipping switches between being the broody kind of teen and just being the angry, pissed off person. So we see Creel go in and touch the Gravitonium and pretty much almost get sucked in, but not quite. He's fighting and he's like, "Get me the fuck out of here," pretty much. He's like, "Ah!" And when we find out that he has gotten severe repercussions from this, because we had Franklin Hall absorbed into the Gravitonium, and that evidently is going on in his head and everything, and he's like, freaking out about it. And of course, Hale then kind of comes to him later and pretty much tells him, "You're gonna keep doing this. It's your choice how this wants to go down," because Creel's like, "I don't want to mess with that anymore. It's affecting my mind. There's something in there. It's alive." And I'm like, run with that more. I've been waiting for something like that to happen with this Gravitonium since someone got sucked into it. This is pretty cool what it's doing to Creel. So we're like, okay, that's what's going on with them. We also see in the Hydra whole spectrum that's going on, we see that Coulson is running his thing kind of with Hale. She is taking his cot and everything, and his Captain Crunch. He's like, well, the Captain Crunch was really uncalled for, but he's just kind of like hanging out in there and not really doing much at first. But of course, the Gravitonium wants Coulson to be destroyed, because Coulson was the one that pretty much got him into that situation, even though kind of through his own fault as well. So Creel gets into him to kind of go and find Coulson, and he does, and he's like getting ready to kind of kill him. But he, of course, brings up the whole stuff with Talbot. He's like, no, Hale's taking care of him and everything. And he's like, no. He's been tortured and everything. And, of course, Creel's bought into the line that the LMD was made by S.H.I.E.L.D. Technically, it was made by S.H.I.E.L.D. components, but made by Killer Android Robot thing. Semantics. Context. It matters. So, we also get that Creel says he has two people fighting in his head. It's like, that's interesting. We only know one person at the moment that was put in the Gravitonium. What's he talking about? And of course, bringing up the whole Talbot thing kind of sets Creel up and like weird, because he actually likes Talbot. He's helped them before and thought they had something going on. So he's like, crap. So he leaves, and then we see, because Coulson says, hey, the Mecha Guards pretty much come by regularly, and they're about to again, so you either gotta let me go, or what's going on here? So Creel goes out, takes him out, and says, alright, we're going to see what's going on. You take me to Talbot. So they then go through their base, trying to find everything, and they get to Talbot. And Creel's like, this is bullshit. So they kind of form up into a group, which was one of my favorite parts of the episode. I really like the group interplay between Creel, Talbot, and Coulson. And I love the character of Creel, because he is not just a simple kind of one-note character. He's very complex. He's made by Hydra, but he doesn't want to be a bad guy. He honestly wants to kind of help out. He's been screwed over, so he's automatically usually doing stuff to kind of screw other people over because of what people have been telling him. If people are straight with him and cool with him, he's a cool guy. And seeing them having to deal with that and, of course, try and get out of the Hydra facility was really awesome. Of course, Talbot being like, I'm kind of crazy and talking really loud, and Coulson's like, you need to use your inside voice. He's like, this is my inside voice. He's like, well, you need to lower that even more. And it's just funny seeing Talbot making his weird observations and everything as they're trying to make their way out of the Hydra facility. Of course, while this is going on, we get our kind of dangling fourth plot as Strucker is trying to write down all of the memorized things that he's had from his father. Ruby's like, you really need to work on this and get the pertinent stuff. But he's like, listen, my father didn't keep everything in one place. He essentially did this so that way what Strucker is doing himself wouldn't be a liability and have people take his work. So he's like, crap. And of course, while she's trying to get him to eat and everything, of course, the alarms blare. Hale sends Ruby to get Creel alive, but to take care of Coulson and Talbot. So they're getting through, and they get to some mech people. Creel's able to do a couple of them, but Coulson gets into a situation where he gets punched and killed by one of the mechas. And Talbot's freaking out. He's like, oh god, fallen hero, fallen soldier kind of shit. And Creel's like, alright, fine. Because Talbot's talking him into saving Coulson, so he pretty much grabs one of the mechs, turns metal kind of stuff, and defibrillates Coulson, which was a pretty cool moment. And then Talbot's like, you die more than anybody I've ever met. It was just great. So they're getting through. They're trying to figure out a way out, but of course Ruby blocks them off from the exit that Creel knows. And he's like, all right, I'll hold them off. They go essentially to the Confederacy teleportation room. Coulson's like, listen, I think I know how this works. As long as we don't do the altitude, we will land somewhere on Earth. And Talbot's like, you do know that that's 70% water, right? And I'm like, damn. Talbot with them observations. So Coulson's able to do it, and him and Talbot get out of there and on this snowy kind of place, which then feeds back in later. So that was done pretty well. I'm like, okay, we'll have to see. We then see that Creel has a pretty good fight scene with Ruby. I'm like, you really have to step your game up with Creel because he can absorb different things. And he did some really cool things with this bow staff that got chopped in half. And he's like, really kind of showing her what's for. And I'm like, listen, you might have some good skills, but you have to make sure that your battle tactics, you shift them to your kind of target, because Creel is bigger than you and weighs more than you, so you have to use those advantages he has as disadvantages, which he didn't really effectively do. But of course, Hale comes in with the rest of the mech guards, and she tells Ruby to stand down, but she throws her bladed weapon, and Creel turns himself to like wood so that it just harmlessly goes into him, and Hale's like, you're essentially proving why I shouldn't make you the destroyer of worlds, because you probably destroyed the Earth despite everyone because you got a bruised ego, which wouldn't surprise me if that actually turned out to be the case. So, then we get to kind of our other parts. We see that Deke is kind of freaking out because Daisy seems to be more of a hard ass to him, but I just think that's his perception more than anything, because that now she's kind of leading the charge to get Coulson back, so she's got to be the one making the decisions. It's funny seeing Gemma try and get more information out of Deke, and seeing Fitz talking to Deke and be like, that's kind of weird. And Deke actually complimenting him on the decisions he made. He's going, hey, listen, in my future, you have life and death situations. I think you did the right move. He's like, that's kind of interesting to have Deke say that to Fitz, how he handled the whole Daisy situation. And of course, Daisy keeps saying that she's not going to let Fitz out, so we then get to Gemma kind of trying to figure out ways to get Fitz out and handle everything correctly, while Daisy goes off with May to get Robin. So we also then get to see Yo-Yo using her new mech arms, which are frickin' awesome and very well done. You gotta hand it to the show. It does really well with the special effects. They don't look really hokey or chintzy, and you see that with Creel in this episode, and you see that with Yo-Yo and her arms, which are pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have some interesting stuff with this. Of course, Mac is trying to make sure that she's doing all right. He's very protective of her. And of course he says, stop babying me. Listen, I gotta perform maintenance on your arms. That's not me babying you. That's me being the mechanic. I'll make sure that you're 100% with that stuff. Alright, fine. Of course, we then get to what's going on with the whole, what Gemma has gotten to as well. Because it's brought up that Gemma and Yo-Yo think that they're invincible because of how this time loop's working out. Since this time loop is continuing on the same path, Gemma and Fitz have to survive in order for Deke to still exist right now, in the present. Same with Yo-Yo. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but that leads to some interesting outcomes. Because they're going, okay, we have to get to this Hydra weapon. How do we get Fitz out? Since Daisy had left Mac in charge and the only one to open up Fitz's cell. So they essentially put on a ruse for Mac, and Gemma pretty much says, alright, I'm invincible and everything. We're just doing a scientific test. There's 3 glasses of water and 1 glass of this hydraulic acid that's in Yo-Yo's arms. And she turns around, Yo-Yo messes around with them, and she just starts pounding them back. And Fitz is freaking out. It's like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And Mac's like, stop this. And she's like, Mac, are you really going to shoot me to stop me from this? I'll wound you to stop this. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, you don't know exactly how this kind of works out. So she gets to the 3rd glass, and she's making it look like she's freaking out. And Mac's like, what do I do, Fitz? What do I do? He's like, listen, let me out. I know exactly where the thing is that I need to make sure that she lives. And Mac lets him out. He goes out. He's running down to get it. Yo-Yo throws Mac in and locks him in. And we find out that Gemma was faking it. She had actually gotten the 3 waters. She pours out the liquid on the acid onto the table thing that they had. And it starts burning through it. And it's like, holy crap. Mac, of course, is severely pissed off. Because he brought up the thing of, what if you make it there because I'm protect you and keep you safe? But of course, they're wanting to change this outcome. Yo-Yo even saying, if I don't make it back, that means we've broken the loops. Like, wow, yeah, that's some heavy stuff. And as she's trying to pick up this gun, it goes off, but it still misses all 3 of them. I'm like, well, okay, this is getting kind of freaky. So we'll have to see how that kind of pans out. Because they leave, and Fitz puts this Quinjet on autopilot because they're going after the 3 locations where this Hydra weapon could be. So like, okay, we'll have to see how that works out. That was a pretty cool and interesting thing going on. We get to Daisy and May, and this is pretty much getting the time loop kind of more caught up. We get Robin in, we get her mother, but her mother's saying that she's being kind of distant, absorbed in her head. And, of course, Daisy is trying to get her to talk about Phil Coulson and try and get his whereabouts, but she doesn't have anything at the moment. We then get her back onto the Zephyr, and she recognizes May and calls her mommy. And that's when we recognize that she's been further along in this time loop than the mother realized. And seeing the mother talk with May about that and saying, you know, if something happens to me, she goes, nope, that's not going to happen. May's going to try and stop that from happening and try and change this time loop. And we see that she starts drawing again, and one of the drawings that she's able to produce is where Phil and Talbot eventually get out on the mountains and everything. They're able to scan and figure out. It's like, wow. And we get a little bit more information as well because she's talking more, and she's talking about Philip J. Coulson and how he's going to die, and Daisy's like, well, we're going to try and stop that. So that is kind of where that's ended out. We didn't get Coulson and Talbot completely rescued yet, but we got Daisy and May going on it. We got Yo-Yo and Fitz and Simmons going after the Hydra object. And then at the end of the episode, we get a surprising kind of 4-year flashback where we see Raina and Ian Quinn, and he's like thanking her for her help and all that kind of stuff, and she's like, oh, I didn't really do it for you, and then feeds him to the Gravitonium. So that's the other person that Creel's got to contend with inside of the Gravitonium. It's like, that's not a good idea to try and infuse the Gravitonium in someone. Because then you've got someone dealing with 3 personalities at once. So it might not even be Daisy or Ruby or Creel that destroys the world. It could be Franklin Hall or Ian Quinn or all those combinations of people trying to fight over control of one body, and it leads to the destruction of Earth. So it opens up some interesting possibilities. I just wish that there had been a better flow or better execution of it, because it went by at a good clip. I really kind of enjoyed the kind of stuff that was going on. It just felt that it was oddly paced, in my opinion, and that either some parts could have been given episodes on their own or just more smoothly integrated. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.